afternoon to you all. Welcome to the Oneness Family School and to Raising Happiness. My name is Andrew Cutt. I'm the Executive Director and Founder of the Oneness Family School. It's our great pleasure to host Christine Carter, who has come all the way from the University of California, Berkeley, to be with us and to offer some thoughts as we prepare to start this exciting parents' workshop with her. But right now, please join me in putting our hands together and welcome Christine Carter.
Well, it is a great, great pleasure for me to be here. It has really been fun for me to share my new book. It's been out for about a month. And this book is really the intersection of my heart, my role as a mother, what I see as my most important job. I have two daughters, ages 7 and 9, and my role as a scientist. I am trained as a sociologist. I have, for the last decade or so, been looking at why social structures like this school or your family or the business where you work elicit certain emotions like happiness or any positive emotion and inhibit others. Now, an interesting thing, when I first started following the positive psychology movement and learning more and more about this new science of happiness, one of the key findings initially was that people are very bad at predicting what is going to make them happy. And on the other hand, we had all this new science that was starting to come out about gratitude or about social connections, all these things that showed us beyond a shadow of the doubt exactly what really would bring us happiness. But here is the one thing that I want you to take away today. I'm going to give it to you right up front. Happiness is much better thought of as a set of skills than it is a personality trait. And what I've tried to do with this book and my blog and this talk today is to give you some of those skills that you can consciously teach your kids and you can practice with them. So, mindsets are as Professor Dweck originally defined them, are a way of thinking about why somebody is successful or not. So it's a belief about success. And she tested lots of different types of mindsets. She found two to be particularly powerful. One is the fixed mindset, which is a belief that somebody is successful because of an innate talent that they have. The growth mindset, on the other hand, is the belief that somebody is successful just as much because of their hard work and their practice as any sort of innate talent. Okay, so here are some things that we can do in our own families to foster the growth mindset besides just praise. The obvious thing is to make sure when you're praising your kids, you're always using a really growth mindset praise. So always, it's fine to praise your kids. That's great. But pointing not to the end achievement, the big win, but to the work that went behind it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about three things, and I'm going to spend the most time on the first one. The first thing I'm going to talk about is motivation, so the carrot and stick versus other ways to motivate kids. The second thing I'm going to touch on is making things a habit. And the third thing I'm going to touch on is self-discipline, or discipline in the service of self-discipline. Okay, so this first thing, this motivating kids with candy or stickers or gold stars or whatever it may be, it works really well. Behaviorists use it all the time. Teachers use it all the time. The neuroscience, we understand why it works in the short term. And there's no questioning that it does. But in the medium to the long term, with children, not necessarily with adults, it backfires in a really huge way. Here's the good news. I figured this all out from this whole other body of research that I've kind of pieced together about what really does work in motivating kids. There are several really good studies. They've replicated this again and again. They were looking for things that wouldn't backfire in the medium to long run. And so I call this earning, that E-R-N. There are three components to how to motivate kids, and it's really not motivating them in an external way. as much as it is trying to keep them in touch with their own intrinsic motivation to do things. The E stands for empathy. I'm going to go through each of these. The R stands for reason or rationale. And the N stands for non-controlling language, or in my head, it's not being so darn bossy. So the way that non-controlling language works is really non-controlling. So saying things like, what I propose is, or if you choose to, you're leaving them autonomous in this. And so this is where I can see all these parents and be like, that would never work with my kids. You know, the thinking, there are a couple ways of thinking here. One is, if I don't make my kid, he for sure won't do it. If I give him a choice, he'll choose not to. So a couple thoughts about that. First of all, you have nothing to lose because they're already resisting. You're already not having success in the current method. The second thing is, this is all research-based. I didn't make this up. This is what the research shows. And the last thing is that if you give kids less to resist, they will offer less resistance. So the next piece to this is really thinking about these things as habits. And they're really hard work, and you'll have variable success when it's really a conscious effort. It's really important to think of self-discipline, which habits take, as being like a muscle. We have tons of research which shows that this is pretty true in terms of how it works. So you don't want to ask your kid to pick up a weight that's too heavy. But when you ask them to pick up a weight that's an appropriate, that is pretty easy, they'll get stronger if they're exercising it, and it will apply to other things as well. It's not really very intuitive that one of the skills that you most need for happiness is self-discipline. It kind of seems to fly in the face of what we think of as being something that brings happiness in our life. But it is. This happiness is a skill, and in order to develop the skill set that you need for happiness, you need to have self-discipline. And this generation of kids is relatively less disciplined than any generation we've seen before. And here's the amazing thing. The clincher seems to be play. Unstructured playtime. And kids just need the big, unstructured spanses of time with other kids in particular to develop the voice in their head, which helps them do what they need to do to develop self-discipline. Okay, I know that this seems like a lot. And what I want you to know is that I really didn't want to write a book or give a talk or write a blog that made parents feel anxious that they're not doing everything right. I wanted to give you some positive tools that will really quickly lead to happiness. And so for that reason, with all of these things, I really believe that any effort is good. That we need to remember what I've been talking about with ourselves too. We need to start really small, and we need to embrace mistake making. Somebody was talking about her kids, and I always think, oh, I need to write a blog posting called "I Yell at My Kids and Your Pediatrician Does Too." That we all sometimes are not very skillful parents, and that when we make mistakes, but we correct them in front of our kids, when we say, "Ooh, Mommy really made a mistake by yelling at you just then, but she was furious," they learn something. You can talk about, that was a mistake. This is how I'm trying to be more skillful in my parenting. This is what I'm going to try and do next time. This is, kids learn that we make mistakes and they're golden opportunities to do better the next time.